Welcome back. Today we're going to do the multi-cam video on Mike Williams' Mike's Pecs. Very popular, very effective Sculpin imitation. Comes in at about 2.5 to 3 inches depending on the hook size, the length of your Chickabou tails and whatever that may be. There's a couple variables, but typically 2.5 to 3 inches is what this one comes in. Absolute deadly pattern. Probably my favorites to tie this one in would be your natural, what we're going to do today. The regular, the just straight Grizzly or gray, olive, and then I'll throw some yellows in there every once in a while as well. But we're going to do the natural one today. Olive would probably be the one that I fish and tie the most. Next up would be this, and then the gray, and then the yellow. But like I said, we're going to go ahead and tie this in a natural. Couple differences that I'm going to highlight on this video from the last time I did this with just the single cam shot. Starting off, nothing new here. We've got a MFC 7050 size 6 for our back hook, and we're just going to take that right to the barb. Advance it just slightly forward. I'm going to tie almost this entire thing, got ahead of myself there, out of this whiting Chickabou and soft hackle patch. All of the natural feathers, I may switch it up for the pectoral fins. I don't know just yet. I'll call an audible at the line when I get there, but almost the entirety for the natural feathers is going to be out of this, and you can tie just a ton of them. The nice thing about this is your colors are going to be consistent because it's all off the same patch. Sometimes if you go with your Hackle and your Marabou from different packs, they can be in the same dye bath and they wind up being a completely different color. This way you know it's going to be consistent. If you suffer from some minor OCD like I do, having different colors in a dye, that just drives me nuts on the fly. Anyhow, this helps ease that a little bit, and honestly it adds to the consistency of your flies and everything, even if you don't suffer from OCD when you're tying flies. But we're going to go ahead and get into this, and like I was saying, we're going to start with this. All of our natural material is going to be off of this Chickabou and soft hackle patch from whiting. So I'm going to pick off 2 plumes here. I wound up with 3. I don't know if I'm going to like that one at all. We'll throw that one in first actually. And we're just going to get our tail tied in here. I keep this tail a little bit on the short side. Let me get that out of the frame there. I keep this tail a little bit on the short side so I don't go the full length of the hook. I'll stop it just shy of the overall length of my hook. And then I'll get that secured into place. Got my thread unraveling on me there. I needed it to cord back up. So there we go. We'll get that into place. You can see that it's a pretty short tail, but it has a nice full body to it, as you can see right there with just the 1 plume that we have. And then I'm going to go with just some copper Flashabou. I'm going to keep this very sparse, probably 2 strands per side. So I'm just going to take 1 strand and double it over. And like I said, it's going to be pretty sparse on the internal flash on the tail. Some of these I'll omit it completely and I won't even put the flash in, but for this one we're gonna add just a little bit to it. So we'll run that forward a little bit, catch it on the opposite side, and have that going right down the center. Trim those to length on the opposite side. And we're all set right there. You can see there's just a very minimal amount of flash going through that tail. Just enough to give it a little bit of an accent, but not so much to where it's going to take over such a small portion of tail that we have in there. If you want to, you can tone these. I'm just going to go 2 Chickabou patches. You could go with a cream on the bottom, or kick it with a yellow, or sunburst yellow would probably look pretty good. I'm just going to go 2 of these natural plumes right here, and I don't really like how that one's sitting too awful well. I'm going to cut the center out of that. It's a little webby up there, so I'm just going to get rid of that section. Get that out. A little too webby for me. So now I'll just set this one right over the top, same length. Get that into place and run that there we go. Run that, just kind of cover that up a little bit. And there you've got a nice fluffed out tail, nice full tail for as small as it is. It throws a nice profile. And then I'm just going to advance my thread a little bit forward. I don't like that last plume too awful much that I put on there, but I'll live with it. I'll live with it. Alright, I'm going to run that a little bit forward like I was saying. And then I'm going to move to a Brassie sized copper wire or brass wire. I'm just going to take a little bit of this here. This is going to be my counter wrap for the Hackle. Get that tied into place. I'm just going to double over my wire like so, keeping this on my side, and then going back to where I tied my tail in. Get this wire out of my way for now, and we'll form a quick dubbing loop. Take that almost all the way up to your tie-in point, or almost to where your eye starts. Leave yourself just a little bit of room there. Get another tool that I'm missing. And for the body on this one, I've almost gone completely, anytime that I tie with ice dub in a dubbing loop and it's a pearl body, it's this ice dub minnow belly. It's got some crazy UV properties in it. It's got some greens, some blues, some purples, and it's a longer fiber too. I mean, it's probably along the 1.5 to 2.5 inch range for each individual fiber, and it really has a nice look to it. You're able to pick it out a little bit more. The other stuff in just the pearl or whatever, it's almost like a chopped Flashabou or something like that. It's a little bit shorter. I'm not able to get it to pick out, and it doesn't have the UV properties in it that I really like on this. So like I've said, I'm almost exclusively, you'll see this in the DFT series and everything, I'm almost exclusively on this minnow belly. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of this here, just enough to get into my dubbing loop. And I don't want it real heavy. You can see that's all the, it's pretty sparse sitting down through there, and I'm not twisting this up to where it's a really tight bundle or anything like that. I want it pretty sparse, and for the reason being, I'm able to keep that from really being a tight cord. And you can see I have those picked out fibers and everything right there. It really gives me a look on these flies that I really like. It just adds a little bit of an extra dimension to the fly. Some of them are a little long, I'll trim them up, but it really looks good in my opinion. So I tend to go with those a decent amount. So now we're going to go into our hackle, and these are like perfect pieces for this fly. If you're tying like full-size dungeons or anything like that, that's not going to be a long enough Schlappen feather. But for this application, for mini dungeons, this soft hackle, and even transitioning into the hybrid saddle Schlappen, it's perfect for these applications. The length is right, the webbiness just seems to fit the fly. It seems to be a near perfect mix for this, so I tend to use those a decent amount. Now we'll grab our hackle pliers, because this is a pretty short feather, and we only have a size 6, but we've still got some decent real estate to cover. The only thing that I have run into with these is sometimes they have a tendency to twist on you, like that one did on me there a little bit. That's the only problem that I've had with these, and I haven't found, I'm just backing this up here, I haven't found the way to really combat that just yet. You can see it's probably because it's such a short feather, and I'm lengthening out the spacing on these wraps, that it does tend to twist on me just slightly. But honestly, it's not really all that noticeable. Probably one in every 5 to 6 feathers will give me a twist like that, and it'll fight me a little bit. But not the end of the world on that. Ideally, I like all the feathers wrapping back toward the back and making that nice symmetrical flow going toward the back. But if there's a couple on here that fight me, especially ones that I'm tying for myself, I don't worry about it too much. But if they're commercial ones, I'll make sure that I kick them off to the side for myself, or I'll just keep those and fish them. It's a little sloppy right there. Yeah, it's a little sloppy where that feather twisted, but honestly, as soon as it gets wet, you're really not going to know the difference. That's the only thing that I've found on these that fights me a little bit. But there you have your back hook. That's it. We'll take and whip finish this one. We'll color up our thread, get the wire in, and then we'll start on the front. Yeah, caught a burr on that hook again. Let me just retie that on there. I want to get a good whip finish. There we go. Spool's a little bit tight too, so clean that up. Grab a marker here, and then we'll just touch up our white thread. Just clean that up slightly. Yeah, one little twist in there is bugging me, but I'll live with it. I'll try not to look at it too much. So now we're just going to take our wire. We're going to take one red bead. This is just a 6/0 bead. You can find it just about any craft store. If you want to, you can go beadless on this one. It's a small enough fly. It's really not going to. It really doesn't need one. I just like to throw one on there. It helps me a little bit with spacing and consistency when I'm tying a bunch of them, so I throw it on there. For our front hook, we're going to go with a Daiichi 1550 size 2. Just get a thread base down here. I got that bobbin a little too loose now. Got that bobbin a little too loose. We'll give her one click. There we go. There we go. So now we'll get this tied into place. Like I said, we're just getting a nice thread base down here. And then I'm going to tie in a size small set of red lead eyes. Just get those secured into place on the top. Just figure 8 over the top and then make some wraps right on your thread, not going under your hook or anything. Right around your eyes, that's going to secure them in place pretty well. Then we're going to move to some zap. Just a little drop on the top, a little drop on the bottom. Just enough to grab that thread slightly. And then once again, grab just a couple figure 8s. Go underneath just the thread wraps and just securing those to the eyes, catching that glue a little bit, and we're good to go. Just look underneath, make sure that those eyes, they need a little bit of an adjustment. There we go. That looks pretty clean. Now we're just going to tie in our back hook. And that's a little long. I just want to shorten that up. I want that back length right there to be about the same width as my bead. If anything, slightly on the short side. If anything, I don't really want to lengthen that out. I want just enough to where I'm going to get a good kick on that back hook, but it's not going to be at risk of fouling itself and going around and catching that front hook or anything. I just want enough to get it a good solid tail kick on that back side. So then I'm going to double over my wires, one on each side as always. Just gives me a little bit of extra security. You probably don't have to, but it just gives me a little bit of extra security, and I know that that back hook is never coming off of there. This fly will be destroyed and it'll still be together. So now you got a couple options on this as far as what you want to do for a cover or for a skirt section. I'm going to use, I don't really like this color too much. I'm going to try and find some that I do. This isn't the best color for the rabbit, but I think I'm going to try to use this. You can use either the marabou, you can use the aftershaft from the Schlappen if you would like. I'm not using a ton of this, so I'm just going to use some rabbit. I think it gives me a little bit better coverage, and really that's what I'm after more so than matching the colors, is I just want this to be a nice clean connection between the two, and a lot of this is going to wind up getting covered up with the pectoral fins anyhow. So that's a little bit on the light side. I just want that going back into just past the eye of my back hook, and I'll get this tied in. I'm going to take it right to where I cut my wire off, where it doubled over, and then I'll have a nice clean transition for the body. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. Just just get a couple of good secure wraps right there, clean that up pretty nice. And then we're going to take the same thing, like I said, on the opposite side. I just want to cut a little bit of this off, just to make a nice cover for the skirt. Measure this out against the last one, and then same thing, bring it to the opposite side and just secure that into place, giving yourself a nice clean transition. There we go. You can see we've got a pretty nice cover on that skirt section. Like I said, a decent amount of that's going to be covered up by your pectoral fins, which will wind up coming back to here. The color meshes pretty well. It's not perfect, but like I said, I'm after more so the coverage than I am an actual color mix on this. I just want a nice thick skirt on that to cover up the connection from the two. So now we're going to go back to our wire right here. I'm going to tie this in. This is going to be the counter wrap to the Schlappen again. Get that secured into place. Double it over so it doesn't come unraveled on you when you're trying to counter wrap, and then you have to start all over and get mad at stuff. So we'll take that to the front, form our dubbing loop, and then we'll get a half hitch there, get that in the cradle, and then we're going back to the minnow belly. I'm going to take a little bit more on this one, but still I'm not getting this real heavy. It's still overall pretty sparse. I just want the effect in there. I don't want a lot of build, so we're not going to really tighten that up a ton. I can give it a little bit more. There we go. You can see all the thicker that rope is for our body, and that's by design, so I'm able to get that nice and picked out. I'm able to get some of that UV sticking out, gives me some extra flash. It kind of looks like a lateral line on the fly. Get that out of our way. Get the rabbit out of my nose, and then we're going to go back to our hackle here. Yeah, that's a good piece, but I'm missing a notch out of it. Yeah, it's a little on the short side. Short, short, short. Nope. Can't find a good one here. That's on the short side. There we go. That one looks good. I'm going to take this and I'm going to get just a little bit of that fuzzy stuff in there. Just working right down to the start of that after shaft, so I'm able to get some of that really picked out fuzzy material in there. I'm going to tie that into place, and I'm going to try to get one complete wrap right at the end of the body of just that really webby material on that after shaft. So now we'll grab this, see if this feather cooperates with us here. It's already starting to twist, I can feel it. Yep. Well, we'll embrace it, see how it looks. I don't know why this one's wanting to twist on me so much. Yeah. There we go. Nope. I was able to get one wrap further back without it twisting. I don't know why that stuff's wanting to twist on me so much, but oh well. like I said, it really doesn't make a huge difference on this. I would obviously prefer it to go all the same direction, but it's not like it's a full size or a triple dungeon or anything like that to where it's going to be really apparent. By the time this all slicks back, you're really not going to notice it too awful much, because it is a smaller fly, so it's not absolutely critical that that stuff all wraps in one direction for you. It'd be nice if it did, but like I said, not the end of the world if it doesn't. So now we'll get rid of our tag end on both the Schlappen and the wire there. I'm going to wrap this back just slightly. I got a few strands of my gel spun there getting in the way. It was trapping a feather or two. There we go, that looks better. So now, and you can see hopefully through there, as I turn this, you're able to see that minnow belly really pop out when this is in the water. Same thing like I was explaining on the DFT and everything too. When this is in the water and you have that sunlight hit this stuff just pops and it sticks out so nice. It really looks good. For this one, I don't know. A lot of times what I'll use is I'll just use the tips of this. I'll just use the tips. Let me get this to where the light's hitting it. I'll just pick two of these out that are pretty similar. I'll use the tips for the pectoral fins. But for this one, I'm just going to use, this is an old hen saddle that I have here. I'm going to find two that are a good match right there. That's a pretty good match. Yeah, I like the thickness on that too. And that, you can see that's going to wind up going back into the skirt section that we tied in previously. It's going to be a little bit of an extra cover. That's why I don't get too awful worked up about that rabbit being an off color from the rest of the body. So there we have that pectoral fin worked in. It's a little bit oversized, and that's by design. I mean, that's how he designed this one. If you look at a lot of the commercial ones and everything out there, a lot of the pictures that you see on these, they are oversized. They're exaggerated a little bit by design. It's just so that they stand out a little bit more. But now we're going to take and we're going to measure this one out. We're going to get the same length on the opposite side. If you want to, you can tie them in like this, opposite to where the cup is facing you. It'll make it a little bit more apparent. That'll stick out to the side a little bit more. I typically like these though to be tied in package side facing in, meaning that the cup or the natural curve to the feather is going to go into the fly. I need to adjust that just a little bit. It's going to go into the fly and it's going to kind of cup around that front hook. And as you can see from that top view right there, you still have a pretty apparent pectoral fin that's sticking out, and you get the benefit of all the extra colors and everything, to where you'd be working with the dull side if you went with the curve going away from your hook. I like having the extra color and everything there. It just it makes the pectoral fins from a visual standpoint pop a little bit more, because it doesn't have the dull side facing what the fish would be seeing. It's not as pronounced, because you can have them really flared out a lot more if you tie them in the opposite way. But like I said, I like the benefit of having that color there and everything. It just makes the fly look a lot better to me. So that's the way that I tie these ones, or that's the way that I tie mine. If you want to go the opposite direction, That's entirely up to you. So now last thing we're going to do is just make one final dubbing loop here. And I'm going to stop at just shy of the eye on this one. I'm going to get this in the tool, get that off to the side. We'll half hitch. And then we're going to go into this rabbit again. Like I said, the rabbit is not a perfect match. I have some stuff back there that would be a little bit better of a match, but it's a little on the short side. So I'm going to go with this. But as I'm out and about in the shops, I always keep an eye out for stuff that would be a good match for this fly. I had one in olive that was just perfect, but I tied all of them before I turned the camera on. I tied them a couple weeks back. They really turned out good. But so with this right here, if I tie this in, and this is the new material clamp, makes this process so much easier. It makes the head so much cleaner when you're tying these in. If I use the entirety of this, the head's going to wind up being out of proportion, and then you have to trim it and everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off maybe 1/4 of an inch, right about at that color transition from the gray to the tan. I'm going to take that off, and then that's all I'm going to be working with right there. Hopefully that was in the camera. I don't know if it was or not, but I was just cutting right along this line here. I didn't even check to see if I was in the back camera. So then I still have enough to where I'm able to capture that in my loop, get that set into place, and then I'll just push that forward just slightly to where it's almost at the very end. And then I'll spin this up real quick. I'm not going real tight at first. I just want to get my first wrap in there. Make sure that you're getting your hackle out of the way. I'm going to make a second wrap, and you'll really see that start to come together. That's pretty good right there. I want to do a third spin on this just to really lock that in place. And it'll really, what it's doing is it's shortening the length of your loop, and it's pulling that material a little closer together, and it winds up condensing it a little bit, and it makes it a good bit thicker on your wraps. So now, I don't know if I like that. I'm going to back that up. I just want one wrap right behind. So I have one full wrap there, and then I'm going underneath the eyes on the top, or on the bottom. So I went underneath the eyes on the bottom, and then I have this, I just peel everything back. I'm not worrying about making another wrap over the top to figure eight this on the eyes. As I do this, as I make that wrap in the front, it's going to peel all of that material back, and I'm going to have nice coverage on the top. As you can see right there, I've got nice coverage. There's not a gap or anything, and I don't have just a ton of excess material that I have to trim out for this head. So now, let me get this out of the way here. I just want to come right around this, not grabbing too much, and I still have a nice clean head, or a nice clean eye. No interference from the rabbit on that. And then I'm just going to preen all of this stuff back, get it out of my way. Once again, we've got a nice clean eye on this. 2, 3, we'll whip finish. Get one more in there just for good measure. That's all set up, that's good. And then the last thing that I want to do, just make sure that my pectoral fins are going in the direction that I want. They're unimpeded. I just want to come through here, and I want to clean up these eyes just slightly so I can see my eyes really well. There, you can see that. I'll turn it a little bit here so you're able to see it a little bit better than what it is right now. I'm just cleaning this section out. I have a nice clean eye right there. Could have shortened that head out just slightly, but overall I'm pretty happy with the length on that. Where's my Allen wrench here? I'm gonna just rotate this so you can see. The eyes are nice and clean. I have a good view of the lead eyes and everything. Transitioning all the way back into the pectoral fins, into the back section with the Schlappen and the marabou tail, the Chickabou tail. Just a really nice overall design on a fly, and like I said, dang near a perfect Sculpin imitation. This thing just flat out hunts. The length of it is just about perfect. Fish just absolutely tear this thing up. But there it is. We'll give that one quick spin, and you can see just slightly all of that minnow belly is right. There's a good view of it. There's just a slight strand of it, and it looks like it winds up being like a lateral line, like I was saying, just because it's just so sparse and there's a couple of strands that really pop out. When it's in the water, it is so apparent. It's almost like throwing some lateral scale on there. It really is. This stuff right here, this minnow belly, I swear by this stuff on bodies. It just makes these flies pop. And like I said, almost everything that I tie that has a pearl belly nowadays, even the cougars that I tie, everything, the DFTs, white dungeons, whatever it is, that's the stuff that I go to. I absolutely love it. But there is Mike's Pecs. If you guys have questions or comments on this one, as always, leave them with me and I'll get back to you. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll catch you on the next fly.